Hello Internet, welcome to Techno Geeks Corner. Today's episode we're going to be diving in to the difference between GDDR versus DDR. Let's get started. So when you're first getting into computer building, one of the very first things you start doing is looking up on forums for various different pieces of wisdom, I guess you could call it, or maybe asking your friends. And you'll basically run into two kinds of memory. We have GDDR, or graphics double data rate memory, and DDR, which is double data rate memory. But they sound similar. Shouldn't they be the same? Well, yes and no. You see, GDDR serves only the GPU, as opposed to the DDR serves only the CPU. So, let's dive in a little bit deeper before we talk about the numbers and stuff. Now, before you guys actually mention, GDDR is on version 5, as opposed to DDR, which is on version 4. When is DDR actually going to catch up? We'll also be diving into that question very soon. See, at one point in the early days, GDDR and DDR were the same thing. In fact, earlier graphics cards were essentially the CPU. And the CPU took care of the graphics, the old engine code, and practically everything that you had to do in the game. When graphics started to become more sophisticated, it called for a more separate unit to take care of all the graphics rendering. And this is where we have our modern day GPU. And we'll actually be doing a documentary on this in the future. It is currently in the scripting process. So the GPU requires its own memory to hold all of the data that it's going to be loading on screen. This is where the GDDR ends up coming into play. This is built right onto the graphics card, at least on pretty much all modern graphics cards. There were a couple that you could add additional VRAM, as it was called back in the day. Now the CPU has to worry about its own stuff that it has to load. Things like your clock, your mouse movements, its AI calculations, how each character is going to react on screen. This is all done by the CPU. Not to mention also sometimes weather effects in some games as well as run by the CPU, not the GPU. So another question that a lot of people are going to be asking is, can GDDR function the same as RAM if I was to basically unsolder the chips and solder it to a board? Well, in theory it would be able to work, but there is one different problem. You see, GDDR is highly sophisticated to carry only graphics memory, as opposed to DDR is highly sophisticated to cover absolutely everything else you need. So things like the internet browser that you're watching this video on, or the iTunes that you're playing your music on, or maybe that Facebook chat that you're currently having with one of your friends, or that Skype call that you're going to be doing with a girlfriend tonight. You see, DDR has to be able to do multiple different jobs at any given time, whether it's running game code, whether it's running your clock, or just simply just moving the mouse around on the screen, or loading the audio for this particular video. GDDR is only concerned on what you're actually seeing. So take for example my face on the screen. This is the only thing that the GDDR is worried about. This is the only thing it has to worry about, as opposed to the DDR, which has to worry about absolutely everything else. So let me just address the elephant in the room. When is DDR actually going to be catching up? GDDR is on version 5, and that's been for quite a while now. And DDR just finally came up with version 4. What gives? Well, as we see in the image right here, the speeds of GDDR 5 and DDR 4 are actually quite a big difference in the two of them. And this comes down to the sophistication of what they need to do. DDR4 is built on being able to do everything as fast as possible, as opposed to the GDDR, which doesn't necessarily have to worry about that much. It is highly sophisticated, but it doesn't require the speeds that a DDR RAM has to have in modern day computing. This is one of the reasons why as we're still looking at this image, that DDR4 is actually much faster than GDDR5. But then when is GDDR going to catch up? Well, I bet you anything it will come in the near future, but right now there's actually no reason for anybody to really come up with a new GDDR6 standard, because graphics are loading faster than ever on pretty much any sort of GPU anyways. And with GPUs becoming so fast at loading those graphics and the shaders and all the shadows and everything else, this is all stuff that... Anyways, thank you very much for watching. If you like what you see, click that subscribe button. And don't forget to also click the bell icon as well. This way it'll notify you of any future videos that are posted to this channel, as in the coming months there will be quite a few posted. Not to mention, I am also working on some game reviews as well, and I would really like you guys to check those out. I do post a Techno Geeks Corner channel. I do post a Techno Geeks Corner video every single week, being usually on Thursday or Fridays, depending on which day I actually have off. And I think I've had one that was posted on a Wednesday because that was the only day I had off. But anyways, if you have something you'd like to ask, leave a comment down the link below. I do read them as well. And also tell your friends. I am trying to get this channel more out there, and I would really like the help. Thank you very much for your continued support. Hope to talk to you guys very soon.